Howdy, and welcome back to the podcast. We have the new world champion of PowerSlap. Thanks for coming in today, man.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Excited
dude.
to be here.
What was it like? What was the lead up to today like? I mean, last event didn't necessarily go, the best. And
Yep.
so what was that experience like? And then what was it like leading up to today?
Yeah, so December 6th, we had our first match against each other, and I was kind of whooping his ass. First round I come out, I won the toss. I rocked him pretty good in the first round, and then he returned, and his shot didn't do anything to me. And then the second round I actually caught him even better, put him on the ground, and if you ask me, it was a little bit of a slow count there. I think he was still on a knee at 10. You know what I mean? But ultimately, they let him come up to his feet and they let him continue, and he ended up catching me with a decent shot. I kind of screwed up. What I did is kind of let down on my defensive technique. You know what I mean? I think I don't know if I was just wrapped in the moment or what it was. You know what I mean? I told myself in my head after I dropped him in that second round, I was like, I've got him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I walked up there in that second round, when he went to hit me, I just didn't know if I had a lapse of judgment or what it was. So he caught me with a decent shot, and that was the first time I had been dropped in my career. But I was right back up, within 3 or 4 seconds. And maybe I should have taken a knee, but even with coming up, being up in that 3 or 4 seconds, when I went to walk towards the ref, I was fine. My foot caught the mat a little bit, but I was still there. When he went to wave his hands, my eyes followed his hands and everything. So I'm like, what the fuck? You're stopping it? Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is a world title fight. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. If I'm stumbling all over the place or I'm falling on top of you or you're out, yeah, just, go ahead and stop it. But, you know what I mean? If you have just the littlest stumble, you know what I mean, and they're calling it for that. There was far worse leading up to that hadn't been stopped. You know what I mean? So it left a sour taste in my mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm the type of person that I don't need any more added motivation, and they all added a lot more motivation to me. That match was December 6th. I flew home December 7th, and December 8th I was right back in the gym getting ready for what was last night. You know what I mean? And I really bust my ass, and I really work hard at these things. So it was really good to right that wrong last night. You know what I mean? Get that revenge, and it was a beautiful, beautiful night.
Oh yeah, man. So what does training look like? I'm an exercise scientist.
Yep.
That's my background.
Yep.
And so what does training really look like for you guys?
Yeah, so now I got with a new personal trainer actually since December, and the personal trainer I'm with actually trains our welterweight champion as well, Anthony Blackburn. So leading up to this, he's had experience with Blackburn, you know what I mean, for the last 4 or 5 matches. So they've kind of really been getting things down and getting the movements down and stuff like that. So being able to add him into my camp this time was great. What I was doing before, I was doing just more like bodybuilding splits, you know what I mean? And it was working, you know what I mean? And I got better and working on my technique and stuff. But this time around, I knew, you know what I mean? I was right there. I just needed to take it up to the next level. So when I brought James on, you know what I mean, we started doing a lot more workouts specifically based around, the movements we make for PowerSlap. So we're doing a lot more core work. We're doing a lot of leg work. We're doing a lot of mobility stuff, chest work, shoulder work, tons of neck work. You need that neck strong. You need your jaw strong. I have a jaw exercise that I chew on to keep your jaw real strong. And then technique, to me, working on the technique is absolutely huge. You know what I mean? When you can have a flawless technique, or when you can have pinpoint accuracy, that's huge in this sport. Because it doesn't take, anybody can knock anybody out with a perfect shot. You know what I mean? So if you can land that perfect shot and you can consistently carry that through every match and every round, you're gonna be hard to beat. You know what I mean? If you have that accuracy. So lot of striking training, a lot of strength training. We did 8 weeks of just strength training, and then we did 4 weeks of striking and strength training. So it definitely paid off. You know what I mean? I felt myself. I was probably in the best shape that I've been in PowerSlap coming into this one. You know what I mean? And I plan to get right back to work and just keep building, keep widening the gap on the competition for sure.
Oh yeah, man. What does technique training look like? Are you like slapping a bag?
Yeah,
Or?
so I have this. It's a head. I should have brought it with me actually. It's just this head. It's got like a post in the inside of it. It's a foam head. They
Okay.
kind of hold it, and it's shaped perfectly like a person's head. So you can really get, you know what I mean, and really see where you need to hit. When I first got into this, I went and bought one of those bobs. There's a bob. It's kind of shaped like a person. It's like a punching bag.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I was using that, but that thing for some reason I just didn't like as much. The face is shaped a little bit different.
Okay.
Sometimes it kind of hurts when you hit it and stuff. So the trainer that I'm with now, he is the one that got Blackburn using this foam head, and he was like, "Hey, you need to go get this." He said, "I'm telling you, it's a game changer." So I went out and got that about 4 weeks ago, and working on my technique with that thing has made just a huge difference. Like I said, I think the technique, you know what I mean, is extremely important when it comes to this stuff.
Oh yeah. What does defensive technique look like? Are you like bracing your core, like
Yeah,
breathing?
so December 6th, like I was just saying a little bit ago, in that second round, I was standing too tall. You know what I mean? If you put your feet closer together and you stand tall, I mean, if somebody pushes on you, your balance isn't as good. So you need to have a nice wide base. So I start with a big, good, nice wide base. Get your knees bent. We got to keep our shoulders down, but you want to get that good flex in your neck, right? You're not tucking your chin. You're not putting your chin way down. But yep. So I just get right up there, flex your neck as hard as you can, and I'll sit there and just brace for it. And then I like to see, some of these guys like to close their eyes because they don't like to see the impact or know when it's coming, I guess. But for me personally, I like to know exactly when the impact is. I don't know if it's just the correlation, you know what I mean? So I watch their hand. So for instance, the guy I just went against, he goes on 3, right? So I watch his hand, 1, 2, and then I watch his hand, pretty much all the way to my face, and then
Damn.
I might close my eyes right there at the last second, but I know when the impact is coming, so I try to brace like hell on defense, whereas some people don't brace as hard, or we've seen guys go out there and not brace at all, and they kind of stick their chin right out there, and that's how you get cleaned out. To me, my philosophy is if I'm sitting there braced down hard and I'm like a wall, right? I want you to, like, when you hit me, feel like you're hitting a wall.
Yeah.
I don't want you to hit me and be able to push my head or be able to push me through, because that's when the brain bounces off the skull, and that's where the concussion comes in, or that's where the knockout comes in. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more technique and everything that goes into this than what people would really understand. The average person understands, and that's where it's up to us athletes to be able to, you know what I mean, tell the stories and tell the training and really show what does go into this. This is a legitimate professional sport now. You know what I mean? And if you want to be good at something, you got to put all that effort in. So
It's definitely a professional sport
yeah,
now.
yeah,
There's no
yep,
doubt about
yep,
that. It's
yep,
huge,
yeah,
man. It's grown like even in a short period of time, it's grown massively.
yep, yep.
It's pretty cool. I mean, to be on that side of it, to be on the athlete
Just
side of it.
yeah, to see the growth of it has been absolutely crazy. You know what I mean? I think I came in and rode to the title season 2, so I watched season 1. So to see where things were at for season 1, even to see where things were at for season 2 compared to where they are now, just a couple short years later, I mean, the growth of it has been absolutely massive. I mean, they've got the right people in charge. You got some of the best business people in the world.
Yeah.
With Dana and his crew and everybody in there. They really know what they're doing. So, they look what they did with the UFC when they bought that. However many years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing there, and then look what they built it into. So, they took the same philosophy that they had with the UFC, and they're putting it into all this. And these guys really know what they're doing. And like I said, I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to be part of this for sure.
What was the event like yesterday? Like, what is the vibe? Like, are you walking in? Is there a green room? Like, what is it like for you?
The energy is absolutely crazy in person. I mean, I've told so many people back home, and I actually had a lot of people out here that come out from Michigan with me. That was their first time seeing the event too. And I said, just wait until you see this in person. Like, it's cool to see on your phone or cool to watch on TV and stuff, but it's the atmosphere. And when you're in there, it's the show, it's the lighting, it's just being in there. The atmosphere it's different. You know what I mean? So when you come walking around with myself, when I come walking around that corner and I see that crowd, I mean, I harness all that energy in. You know what I mean? I take it up, I take it right up on stage with me, and I like to get the crowd interacted, you know what I mean? Get that all, part of all of it.
Yeah.
So it's some people get under those bright lights, and they can completely fade or get terrified of the bright lights, whereas I think I shine even better under the bright lights.
Being on the bright lights is kind of fun.
Yeah.
There's
yeah,
something
no,
about it. Like, there's
yep,
an energy that comes
yep,
with it,
yep, for
Like,
sure.
there's some fucking hype.
Yep.
It feels good.
Sure is. Yeah, no, it feels great.
I used to compete for Team USA, and so
Oh, really?
like, yeah, so you'd have guys that were like super good inside the gym,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you get onto the platform, and then they just like they shit the
Yep,
bed, and
yep.
you're like, man, you were just like squatting, like 700 pounds, you like last
Mhm.
week, like what happened? And it's just the pressure that people just can't take, you know?
Exactly. And I testify that to the things I've been through. I come from a real big wrestling school where we wrestled in front of huge crowds, and we were put in high pressure situations when we were just high school kids. You know what I mean? So to be able to deal with those situations, and then just life in general. And I was in MMA before all of this, so I was used to all of that stuff. So when I came into this, what I mean, it was just this is obviously a bit bigger, but you know what I mean. I had been through those experiences. I know how to handle all those situations already. So that was an advantage for me coming into this.
You know the game.
Exactly.
You know what it feels like.
Well, that what I mean. I know the game, and I've also been studying and watching the UFC forever as well. I've had all my own experiences, but I also believe that you can learn do's and don'ts from everybody out there, right? So, I study and watch all these UFC guys, and I watch how they carry themselves. I watch what they're doing. I take do's and take don'ts from all of them, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I apply it into myself and try to become the best person that I possibly be.
How much do you weigh?
Uh, so I fight at 185.
Okay.
Normally I like to try to keep my weight within 10 pounds,
Nice.
like around 195. But if I let myself, I will get up to about 215, 217. So yeah.
You can get pretty big.
Yeah, I can pack on the weight. So I try to keep myself lean. You know what I mean? I
That's
do.
hard.
Yeah, I have to stay on a pretty decent diet all the time. So
That's tough.
yeah,
That kind of sucks.
it's tough. You know what I mean? It's a hell of a commitment for sure. But I would rather do that than try to cut 15 or 20 pounds, or especially
Yeah.
try to do that, in the last couple weeks. To whereas, if my weight is a little bit higher, I'll start 2-3 months ahead of time, even if, you know what I mean? Or if I hear an event is coming up, or if my weight's heavy, I'll start coming down. Even if I'm not called for that event, I'll still bring my weight down just to be, just in case.
Yeah.
Because I've said some of these other guys too, you take every opportunity that they're willing to give you. You know what I mean? If they call you on, I was called on 17 days notice in December for a title fight.
Damn.
And I was ready to go because I stay in the gym. I stay ready. You stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Is it fatiguing, like mentally fatiguing, or not so much?
It's not too bad, you know what I mean? Because I have, a great support system. My wife at home, we have 4 kids and everything. So, you know what I mean? When I'm dealing with these, or I'm in training camp and stuff, her stepping up and doing everything for the kids, and really being able to give me the freedom to be able to concentrate on the things that I need to concentrate on, or, you know what I mean, being out here, for a week at a time, or a couple weeks when I was on the show, or flying over to Saudi Arabia for a couple weeks. If she wasn't who she is and taking care of the kids and everything back home, there's no way I could be able to do the things that I'm doing now. So
Shouts out to the wifey.
yeah, shout out to the wife for sure.
How do the kids feel about it? Like, are they are they like, hey, dad, like this is
Yeah,
fucking cool?
yeah,
Like, I
so-
want to get
yeah,
at it too.
It's actually really cool because like we'll catch times where we have like pads and stuff that we work on, hitting too, and sometimes you'll just catch the kids outside playing, and you'll see them over there smacking the pads and everything like that. I've seen my son over there with my brother a couple times, and so I have an 8-year-old son. We have 4. I have an 8-year-old son. We have a daughter who will be 7 in July,
Okay.
and then we have twin girls that'll be 5 actually next month.
Nice.
So,
Damn.
and I tell this story all the time. It's funny because my twins, they have like Alexas and stuff like that when we let them, get on those things. And it'll be funny because they'll go over to the Alexas and they'll be like, Alexa, play my dad's PowerSlap on YouTube. And I'll be like, baby, they don't know who your dad is. So they'll be like, so they'll say to Alexa, they'll be like, Alexa, play Brandon the Butcher Bordeaux PowerSlap on YouTube. So then they'll bring those matches up, and then they sit there and watch them. So,
Oh,
you know what I
wow.
mean? They know very well, everything that I'm into. And, I've said this a few times last night in the interviews and stuff too, is, they'll get home from school, and my wife works at a daycare and stuff too. So by the time she gets out, she just picks the kids up from school, and they get home. And when they get home, I'm getting ready to go to the gym. And the first thing the kids would be like, they see me changing or see me packing my bag, and they're like, Daddy, you're going to the gym? And so they know, they know that I'm going to the gym and that I'm working towards something. And they know, we've been talking about this world title for months, or since I came into this, is what I've been preaching to the kids, that I'm in this to win the world title.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they watched how, things went in December. Not that they completely understand all that,
Yeah.
but, you know what I mean? They know I've been chasing a world title. So for me to win this, I've said this goes so much deeper than just me. It's all the people that support me, all the people that we brought out here, from Michigan. It's all, I coach youth sports year round back home. So it's all those kids, that are watching me. And then most importantly, it's our 4 children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's teaching them, for them to see me accomplish, a goal that I had set out. Now that shows them that, hey, if I want something in life, I can achieve anything that I want to achieve, but I got to have the right mindset. You know what I mean? I got to be obsessive over it. I got to dedicate to it. And if I do that, like I said, you can achieve anything in life. So, you know what I mean? Setting those examples for my kids and setting those examples for all the kids that I coach. And, even, I know there's other adults and stuff like that too, that look up to, what I'm doing. And even if it just comes to health and fitness, they've seen how I've really, transformed myself and everything. So I'm sure it's been inspiring to a lot of people. And, even some of my own family, I see like, my parents and my brother and stuff like that, like, getting on diets and just eating different and doing different things, you know what I mean? Because they've seen, what I'm doing. So it's inspiring others, which, that means a lot to me. You know what I mean? You're put in this position and you're a role model to a lot of kids and you're inspiring a lot of people. And I take that seriously. I hold myself to a high standard and, and I always will.
Oh yeah, man. I like it a
Yeah,
lot.
thank you,
It's
thank you.
inspiring. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah, it is.
And
Yep,
it's
yep.
there's a ripple effect, right?
Yep,
Like
yep.
you have one person who drops that rock in that river, and then all of a sudden there's all these people around you, even people that you'll never even
Yep.
meet, that you never know,
Yep.
that are just like, man, I'm gonna start changing my diet a little bit
Yep.
too. Like,
Yep.
or even if it's like, man, then I don't want to do slap, but I mean, I do want to get into the gym,
Yep.
and like
Yep.
that alone will change that person's
Oh,
life.
for sure. For
You
sure.
know?
Absolutely. You know what I mean? I just feel so much better when you go to the gym. You know what I mean? It's just, no, you don't have to go in there and throw weights around like a bodybuilder and stuff like that, but just getting your body active and getting your body in motion, sometimes you might be sitting at home. I mean, I've had days myself where I'm sitting at home and I feel like shit. I don't want to go to the gym. I'm just, trying to drag myself there today. But by the time I get to the gym and I walk out those doors and I'm done, I feel like $1,000,000. You know what I mean? And I tell myself, man, I'm glad I pushed through, 'cause sometimes you got to push through that mindset. You know what I mean? And like I said, you walk out those doors, you feel great.
I truly believe that. I think the gym is the greatest teacher
Yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
of all life. Like, it
Yep.
teaches you the discipline. It teaches you how to take care of yourself.
Yep.
It teaches you, if you're going to be moving well for the rest of your life, you're
Mhm.
also like taking care of the future you. So it's
Yep.
like delayed gratification.
Yep.
Like, it's the best teacher that I think
Absolutely.
exists.
Yep. Yep.
And like, we all need it, and especially in a world where food is so accessible, where
Yep.
there's like you don't have to ever go to the gym ever if you
Mhm.
really want to,
Yep.
because there's so much access on video games and hanging
Yep.
out and
Yep.
like, but taking care of yourself, that just like the quality of your life will increase
Mhm.
tremendously.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
love it.
You know what I mean? And the world's changed so much nowadays. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's so many kids that are just into video games, you know what I mean? And then all they're doing is playing video games all day, and then they have terrible eating habits on top of that, you know what I mean? And it's a recipe for disaster the older they get. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, you need to get out, you need to get your body in motion, you need to be moving, you know what I mean? Your bodies are meant to move and get out and work your muscles, you know what I mean? And it sucks to see, a lot of these kids nowadays just stuck in front of video games all the time, so I mean, my kids will play a little bit of video games here and there, but my kids are also outside bodies. You know what I mean? The minute it's warm outside or anything, those kids are outside the entire time, and that's all they do is play and play and play. And, growing up, we grew up on a big dairy farm our whole lives. So we had hundreds and hundreds and thousands, really, of acres just to roam and play. And that's all we did all day, every day. You know what I mean? We didn't play very little video games and stuff like that. So,
It's wild.
it's, to see some of these kids, I mean, I know a couple kids that, that's all they do is play video games. You're just like, man, that's it's not good for you're young too. I mean, you're 8, 10, 12 years old, and that's all you do is sit on video games. And it's not, yes, that now we're seeing more now, nowadays, that people can have careers in video games and stuff like that. But it's, when you're sitting in front of that thing 24/7, and like I said, their eating habits are terrible on top of it. Well, you're literally just sitting on your ass all day, and then you're eating junk food. I mean, you're not burning anything in your body, so now you're gaining unnecessary weight, and you know what I mean. Unnecessary health problems follow, and
By the
you
time
know
you
what I mean.
know it, you're 30 years old,
Yeah.
and you're like, my heart, my
Yep.
blood pressure's high, and I'm not healthy. I
Yep.
don't have any
Yep.
friends because I don't know how to make friends
Yeah.
because I
You're
never
not.
was out doing team
Yep.
sport.
Yep.
Like, it's massively detrimental. I don't know.
Yep.
I like seeing when people are just out and moving, man.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I
Absolutely.
grew up playing video games,
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
PlayStation 1 was in the house,
Yep.
played it.
Yep.
I still play video games to this day, but
Yep.
it's like, also there was like, I don't know, at school, but then like 4 hours after school, it was just like nothing but training.
Yep.
And then like you come home, you
Mhm.
play for 30 minutes or whatever, or
Yep.
like over the summer, you're playing for a little while.
Yep.
But there's so many other activities where you're even getting outside and play with your neighbor.
Yep.
Like, that doesn't
Yep.
happen
Yeah.
anymore,
Yeah.
you
It
know?
don't happen no more.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it's crazy because the world we live in, it's hard to trust people nowadays. You know what I mean? It's especially you got kids, and the way things have been in the world is it's kind of crazy. So, yeah, like you said, it's a shame to see some people kind of go down that road, but like I said, ultimately it's best to get your body in motion, keep your
Yeah.
body active. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with playing video games. You know what I mean? But you just need to limit yourself. It isn't something you should just sit on your ass and do 20 hours out of the day and then just sleep the other couple hours. Your body needs to be in motion. And like you said, you get to 30 years old, and all of a sudden you got all these health problems when realistically that should almost be like the peak of your life. You should be kind of be in some of the best shape that you really should have ever been in.
Yeah.
So
Seriously. So you grew up around dairy.
yep.
And then now you run a slaughterhouse? You
Yeah.
own, like, how,
Yeah,
what do you do?
So myself and my brother, we have a mobile slaughtering business together. He's kind of really stepped up and kind of taken over things, with me being a PowerSlap and stuff. So, shout out to him for really stepping up, especially these last few months. You know what I mean? I really since January, I kind of told him, my whole family, everybody's known I've really been locked in on this world title. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm gonna kind of take a step back here for a little bit and put a little bit more responsibility on his shoulders. And he stepped up amazing, and he's really taking things under control, which is now giving me the more time and to be able to concentrate on the things that I need to concentrate on for PowerSlap. So Yeah, no, that's been great. Him and I we've been doing that for the last couple years together. I've been a butcher for about 8, 9 years. I started just cutting meat in the grocery stores, and I wanted to learn how to do everything from farm to table because, like I said, we grew up on a farm our whole lives. We grew up in 4-H. We grew up around that stuff all the time. So I wanted to learn how to do everything. You know what I mean, from the animal alive right down to the last steak. So I went and worked at a USDA slaughterhouse for about 4 years, and I actually ended up breaking my back at work.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah. So then when I broke my back, actually, that's at that time too is when I was getting ready to come back to MMA, because I was undefeated in MMA. I was 5-0 in MMA, and I was getting ready to turn pro, and we ended up having our first couple of kids, and I was like, well, I gotta go get a big boy job right now. There wasn't any money in local small MMA at the time,
Yeah.
so it was time to take care of the family, and I had been there for a couple of years, and I'm like, you know what, this is a good time for me to, start trying to come back. Well, as I'm doing that, I'm at work, and I lifted a really heavy, front quarter of beef by myself up onto a table. And when I did it many other times too, right? You lifted your legs, turn your body around, set it on there. But this time it was really heavy, so I kind of heaved it fast, and I didn't twist my feet around, so I just grabbed it and I
Ooh.
twisted. And when I twisted up on the table, my bottom vertebrae just
Ooh.
cracked back there.
Ow.
Yeah. So that was not fun to deal with.
Yeah.
That was absolutely miserable. You know what I mean? So I had to go through a whole situation with that, and I had to work for about a year with a broken back before I was able to have surgery. And
Damn.
then I went through the surgery, and when I went through the surgery, I was at that time I ended up having my little brother down there working with me for like about the last year. And when I went off to have surgery, I'm like, you know what? We had kind of thrown around the idea of possibly doing something, on our own, because we were driving like an hour and 20 minutes one way to work. So I mean, man, you're
Damn.
spending and then when you get traffic and stuff. I mean, you're
Damn.
spending 3 hours in a vehicle, and I'm like, we got babies at home and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I'm like, I'm so sick of driving this far to work. So when all that that situation happened with my back, I said, this might be the perfect time for us to branch out and start doing our own thing. So while I was recovering from surgery, my brother, he stepped up and got everything ready. We bought a box trailer and stuff like that, a cooled insulated trailer, and he got everything all set up. And then when I was able to kind of start doing things a little bit, I mean, I would step out there and give him a hand as much as I could. But for the most part, he went down to that slaughterhouse with me, and he really learned a lot of stuff there. And he's been kind of the driving force in all of it. And I, like I've said, I've just stepped back and kind of anytime he needs guidance or needs help with anything, I'm there to help him as much as I can. But at the same time too, I mean, it's a super physical job as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, with having a back surgery, there's only so much, I mean, bending over and stuff that I can constantly do as well. So, I'm very happy that he's been able to step up, and it's been something that's been really good for him too.
Nice, man. Well, how much does a front quarter weigh?
Yeah. So this one was, this beef I wanted to say was almost 650 pounds on a half. Which is big, you know what I mean? Because you're coming out to about 1,300 pounds dressed with the whole beef, so that's big.
Damn.
You know what I mean? Because your average is going to be probably 700 to 800 pounds on a whole beef, so you're talking about 350, 400 for a side. So that front quarter is probably a couple hundred pounds. While like I said on this one, it's probably
Big.
650 half. You know what I mean? So it was probably close to 300 pounds getting it up there. Which, like I said, it wasn't the problem of. Yes, it was bigger. I mean, it was just the fact that when I lifted it and went to twist like I did, and that twisting on my lower back, and yeah, I mean, that was some of the most brutal pain that I've ever dealt with. And that's what I get people who ask me, like, well, how the hell can you get hit in the face, or how the hell can you deal with a broken nose and stuff like that? I'm like, because the stuff that I deal with my back, you know what I mean? This stuff don't even compare. That pain don't compare.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have back problems, that shit sucks, man. Everything you do is related to your back. I mean, you sit too long, it hurts. You stand too long, it hurts. You walk too much, it hurts. You know what I mean? You can only bend in certain certain ways. You know what I mean? So you really gotta. It takes time to really figure out what you can and what you can't do. And when all that happened and I had that surgery, I didn't think that I would do anything physical ever again in my life. Like physical activity or like sports or anything like that. I was like, you know what, this is kind of over for me. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna kind of, work and just kind of get around as best as I possibly can, and I just I was resilient about it. I was like, you know what, I don't want to be stuck in this a box, or be stuck sitting in my bed or sitting on my ass forever. So I mean, I went out and got with a personal trainer who was able to really work around I mean, the back problems that I have. So there's ways to get around things. You just got to make sure you're doing the right the right workouts and stuff like that to not do anything to that back or not let anything flare up.
Yeah, I mean, even more reason to do extra core work. I'd
Yeah.
imagine, right? I
Yep.
mean, that would
Yep.
tell me like, okay, we probably should be looking at
Yep.
that front side, the transverse abdominis,
Yep.
but even those obliques, right? I
Yeah.
mean, especially in a rotation sport, it's like
Yep.
that's a lot where your power comes
Yep.
from. And so if that broke like that, yes, it's in a weird way, but also like maybe our core needs a little bit extra
Yep.
work, right?
Yep.
And so
Yeah, and that's exactly what we've done in this camp too. I mean,
yeah,
we did a lot more core work, which is another thing. It's tricky too because, yeah, when you have back problems, the best thing you can do is have a strong core. But at the
yeah,
same time, when you have back problems, the core workouts that you do are very limited too because you know what I mean, like the sit ups, you know what I mean, or stuff, or I've seen people who take like ropes over their neck and they'll do
yeah.
crunches and stuff like that. But that bending motion and stuff on your back is absolutely terrible. So we've had to do some trial and error stuff and kind of figure out what I can do and what I can't do. And yeah, there's definitely things out there that hurt way more than some of the other things. So I mean, we've done a decent amount of core work, but I can only imagine like if I didn't have the back problems that I have, like the core work and the core strength that I really would have would actually be way more than what I even have now.
It's a scary guy.
Yeah, 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 yep,
Imagine,
yep,
that'd be
yeah,
wild.
yeah. Just imagine, what I mean, the improvements and the things I've been able to do now. You know what I mean? I always have that wonder. And I've done great. Obviously, here I
Yeah.
am as world champion, but I've always told myself, I mean, I wonder what it'd be like if my body was completely healthy. You know what I mean? Or if I didn't have these back problems and stuff. How much further I really could take things. You know what I mean? Because
There's no wondering. Like it
yeah,
happened, and the
yep,
reality is that
yep, yeah,
we are
yeah,
where we're at,
yep.
and
You have to deal with it.
you've made a lot out of it
Yeah,
already,
yeah,
So
yep,
like
yep,
maybe the other route, you never would have gone down this route
yeah,
because you would
nope,
have stayed in, just
yep.
working that job and stayed there
Yep.
forever.
Everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a
I
reason.
truly believe that.
Everything
Everything
happens.
happens for a reason. You know, what I mean, something can happen in your life and it might not make sense right then and there, and you might think it's the worst thing ever, and then what I mean, you get a few years down the road and you look back and you're like, I kind of think I know why that happened now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean, and I've had that situation multiple times. You know what I mean, where it's, I mean, I get into a situation, I'm like, you know what, no, you're not necessarily meant to break your back or not meant to go through that situations, but there's a reason why I was put through those situations. There was a reason why, you know what I mean, to get all of that has molded me into who I am today. You know what I mean, from the mental, the mental toughness, the resiliency. You know what I mean? All that stuff teaches you a lot, and coming from the backgrounds that I've come from and coming from, the wrestling background and stuff that I come from, what I mean? You got to be mentally tough and you got to, you got to be very resilient. You know what I mean? It teaches you those things. And then it leads into this, it leads into PowerSlap where you have to be tough as hell and you have to be resilient. You know what I mean? To stand up there, put your hands behind your back and let another grown man just smash you in the face like that and just hope that, you're tough enough or that your body's tough enough to be able to take that shot. You got to be mentally tough. You got to be resilient to do those things.
That's not for me.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
tell
no,
you that.
it's not. I mean, it's not for everybody. It takes a whole different set of balls to do it, or a little bit. Maybe you have some screws loose upstairs, whatever it is. But to me, it's the thrill of competition with me. I mean, I'm an ultimate competitor when it comes to anything. Excuse me. I mean, even if we're thumb wrestling, I mean, I'm gonna do everything I can to beat you. Or if we're playing Monopoly, I'm gonna do everything I can,
Yeah.
to beat you because I'm an ultimate competitor. You know what I mean? So when it comes to these things, it's the same thing. I mean, I'm the ultimate competitor. I'm going to do everything that I can do to give myself the advantage to be better than the next person.
Dude, I don't know. There's something about wrestlers that are just built
Yeah,
different, man.
yeah.
I used to do judo, and it was like wrestlers are just a different beast of
Yep,
people,
yep,
man.
yeah.
It's a weird group of people that
Yep.
just are kind of a little bit crazy. We're
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, you got to be. You know what I mean? To go through the workouts that you go through for wrestling. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I've said numerous times to parents who have kids. You want to do your kids a great life favor, put them in wrestling. I mean, it teaches you so many life lessons. It teaches you how to deal with adversity. I mean, you're going to go through losses. You're going to go through wins. You know what I mean? It's going to teach you how to deal with those things. It teaches you how to be tough, tough as hell, mentally tough, resilient. You know what I mean? The workouts that you go through. I mean, you're constantly pushing yourself. Amateur wrestling isn't. You don't get a ton of shine for it. You know what I mean? Yeah, so you can go, Olympic games and stuff like that, but you're in a room with 20 or 30 guys and you're just grinding like hell, beating the shit out of each other constantly. You know what I mean? You work up to that mental toughness and everything, and it goes for life too. When a situation gets hard, a wrestler's been like, well, I'm in these situations every day. I put myself in these hard situations every day, so I know how to work through them, right? So when you come into a life situation that's hard, well, I've been through this, these situations every day in wrestling, so I know how to get myself through these situations. So the wrestling's it's a completely different sport. You know what I mean? It's a one-on-one sport, and you really do got to be tough as hell to be able to go through it, and especially compete at the highest level. You know what I mean? It's just it's a different breed of people, and like you said, it's a different breed of mentality too, and that's where who I am today and the mentality that I have today came from from my wrestling roots and the things that I've been through.
I love it, man. Are you ever scared about getting injured?
Uh, Not necessarily. I mean, I know, especially in this, you know what you're signing up for. You know what I mean. You know what can happen to you. Whether it's getting knocked out or whether it's breaking your nose or I cracked my orbital a couple times back in June. I got hit in the eye and cracked my orbital a couple times. But
Rough.
it's it might not feel the best, but they got kind of the battle wounds and stuff, and it all paid off. So
Good, man. And then, well, I think we were taking this guy to also help with some TTE, right? So
yeah,
concussions
yeah,
are pretty, I mean, concerning.
yep,
And
yep,
so, how do you deal with strengthening the next part of it?
yep,
What else are you
yep.
taking to help with like the reduction in CTE?
Yeah, I mean, so if you take the gummies and stuff like that to help repair the brain tissues and everything like that, any of that stuff is as beneficial as it possibly comes, right? I mean, taking shots to the head is never the best thing in the world, right? But in any in combat sports or football or anything like that, you're taking shots to the head, and this is what I try to explain about PowerSlap to people, because some people look up there and they just think it's the most brutal thing, or that you're just asking for CTE. Well, you can get CTE in any contact sport, right?
Yeah.
So I was just explaining this the other night. I've had 6 matches in the last 2 years. So if you add it up, I mean, I've taken maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 shots. You know what I mean? And not all of them have been big shots. Yeah, I've taken a few big ones. I've taken a non few big ones.
Yeah.
But that's 15 in the last year and a half. Okay, you go into MMA or you go into boxing. I mean, these guys are taking hundreds of strikes to the head in training camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or in sparring. That's before they ever even get to the fight. You know what I mean? And they're taking hundreds more in the fight. You know what I mean? So I made a post a while ago just trying to help educate people on it, that, I mean, it would take us like 10 plus years to even get the, equivalent damage to the head as, say an MMA or a boxer gets in, one fight or one training camp. Yes, they are moving and stuff like that, but they're at the end of the day, they're taking a lot more than 3 or 5 to big shots between a whole training camp and a fight. So, you know what I mean? The most we're going to take in a title fight is 5, and a non-title fight is 3. You know what I mean? So, anything that you can do to help repair, that brain, you know what I mean, and try to keep those things safe, the better it is.
It's a good way to put that. That's
Yeah.
a really good way to put that.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? All right, we're world champion. Now what? Now what?
Yeah. Now it's time to defend. You know what I mean? I had set my first goal was to win the title. You know what I mean? I'm a very goal oriented person. You know what I mean? So I just keep upping the goals from here. And it's now it's time to defend and keep clearing out the division. I believe that we could go ahead and probably run a trilogy back with this. In my opinion, I whooped his ass in December. I whooped his ass again here in March. If they want to do a third one, I have no problem whooping his ass again too. So, I just think it's the biggest storyline right now in the division for sure. You know what I mean? The way things had ended in December, you know what I mean? And then me just taking him out, running right through him pretty easy last night. You know what I mean? I just feel like that's the biggest story possible in our division right now. We got a couple people that are working their way up. Isaiah kind of came through and ran through the division, and I came up, kind of behind him. I was in 185 before him, but he came in and he had a couple knockouts that jumped him up over me even, and so he kind of ran through the guys and then ran through who was the champion there, and then he kind of ran into me, and then I ran through him. So you know what I mean? It's been like I said, now it's time to defend and keep building the legacy for sure.
Hell yeah, man. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook. I'm at Brandon Bordeaux, or on Instagram it's the Butcher Bordeaux. So and I have TikTok as well, and that's at Brandon Bordeaux as well. So I try to keep everything posted on there. Keep everything up to date. What I got going on just in my everyday life, or what I got going on in PowerSlap and everything too. So it's definitely good to be able to have those platforms for people to be able to see your stories and see what you do on a day to day, your day to day life, or you know what I mean, the workouts and stuff like that. I mean, I don't necessarily post my exact workouts, but you know what I mean, like you show stuff on there, or, being at the gym, and people are intrigued by what your everyday life is like. I mean, everybody's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's cool for people to be able to follow your journey or follow your life, and and see what you got going on.
It's cool, man. Anything else?
Yeah. No, I mean, thanks for having me. I mean, this is great. It's good to sit down, I mean, and spread the word more about PowerSlap, and the more educating that we can do, because this is such a new sport. I mean, the more educating that you can do, the more spreading the word that we can do, the better it is for the sport and everybody involved.
100%. Sweet, man. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank
Love
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you.